Township have contaminated the groundwater there. And we reported live from Mason City on Little Lorenzen becoming the nation's all-time top-scoring high school basketball player. The features you want and the news you need. See it here on News Center 13.
For better reception, tune to your local translator channel.
Another bombshell report tonight about covert White House activities. This time, the real aim of the Libyan bombing raid was to murder Colonel Gaddafi, and what role President Reagan played in the decision.
NBC Nightly News, reported by Connie Chung.
Good evening. The New York Times Magazine tomorrow reports that President Reagan chaired a top-level meeting last year where several extraordinary ways to kill Libyan leader Colonel Muammar Gaddafi were discussed. The magazine report was written by veteran investigative journalist Seymour Hersh. Hersh also reports that the bombing raid on Libya last April was really an attempt to assassinate Gaddafi. We'll have more on this story with Andrea Mitchell in just a moment. But first, the Tower Commission investigating White House handling of the Iran arms scandal today met again with former National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane. Today's session was an unexpected meeting, as Tom Pettit reports.
The Tower Commission today continued its relentless questioning of Robert McFarlane at Bethesda Naval Hospital.
Good morning. About finished with the work now? I think so.
Today's Tower Commission interview lasted 3 hours and was requested by McFarlane instead of providing all written answers. For almost 10 hours in 3 different interviews, he was the most heavily interrogated of 58 witnesses. Was he part of a cover-up? That was the question of the commission, but only one question. Everybody here in Washington is waiting for all the answers found by the Tower Commission. Working through the weekend in several government offices, the commission now is finishing up its report. Tower, former Secretary of State and former Senator Edmund Muskie, and former National Security Advisor Brent Scowcroft. The commission, appointed by the President to scrutinize the Iran-Contra affair. November 26th, the Presidential Commission went to work aggressively. It interviewed the President himself twice. The second time, he said he had not approved the first arms shipment to Iran in advance, directly contradicting his January interview assertion that he had approved the arms shipment in advance. Also contradicting McFarlane's account of the 1985 arms sale.
The President, in August, provided the decision basis for events that followed.
That discrepancy is one reason why Muskie was at Bethesda today with the other Tower commissioners in their pursuit of McFarlane's story. Many stories are coming out now, and tension rising. Oliver North emerging in computer data as possibly being vulnerable to espionage charges. At his Virginia home today, the biggest mystery man of all, outraged by the television and newspaper stories.
All I know is what I've read in the papers, and I don't believe most of that.
We don't believe most of that.
You think I should? I mean, yesterday I was offered capital punishment, the death penalty, yeah. I think that's a little extreme, don't you?
He was talking about the possible espionage charge for unauthorized release of intelligence to Iran.
It would be, I think, best for the country to have this behind us.
Neither Oliver North nor John Poindexter ever talked to the Tower Commission. Some Middle East principals did, not the Israelis. The Israeli government sent its answer in writing. It got here yesterday. The Tower Commission report, several hundred pages long, is to be released Thursday. Some parts of it may be so hot that they must be deleted for security reasons. Tom Pettit, NBC News, Washington.
As we reported at the top of our news, the New York Times Magazine tomorrow reports that President Reagan chaired a top-level meeting last year in which the assassination of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi was discussed. White House correspondent Andrea Mitchell has that report.
According to investigative reporter Seymour Hersh, when American jets bombed Tripoli last April, their real target was Gaddafi. Quoting unnamed sources supposedly involved in the planning, tomorrow's New York Times Magazine says the White House's secret plan was to kill the Libyan leader. The bombs missed. The raid did damage Gaddafi's tent and house, killing an adopted daughter, injuring his wife and other children, but Gaddafi survived. The New York Times says the plan was hatched by former NSC officials also involved in the Iran scandal.
The information I have is that there was a small group inside the NSC that was working that included Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North and a few other officers that were responsible for some of the basic planning. Also, I should say, there's no question what the Air Force was told. There's a lot of question about who exactly in the White House was telling them and how those orders originated. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said through his spokesman that while he had heard some talk and some bantering about killing Gaddafi, no such orders existed that he knew of. What I think happened is I think we have a very brilliantly done, I guess, back-channel operation. If they did get Gaddafi, there was going to be nothing in the records to show that he had been targeted. If they didn't get him, why, of course, what's the difference?
The cover story was that the raid was aimed at a command and control center and the barracks of Gaddafi's Praetorian Guard nearby. None of those structures were hit. Gaddafi's location was supposedly pinpointed by Israeli intelligence, which placed him in his tent a few hours before the bombing. That night, the president justified the raid by attacking Gaddafi as a terrorist.
Despite our repeated warnings, Gaddafi continued his reckless policy of intimidation, his relentless pursuit of terror. He counted on America to be passive. He counted wrong.
The New York Times says that President Reagan was at a meeting last January 6th when Oliver North suggested ways to provoke and kill Gaddafi. The White House flatly denies that there was ever a plan to kill Gaddafi. Tonight, a spokesman told me if we had targeted Gaddafi's house, there would have been many people at the NSC and at other agencies who knew about it. And he said he has checked tonight with top officials still at the NSC, the State Department, and the Pentagon involved in the planning for that raid, and they all deny that there was ever an assassination attempt. Connie?
Thank you, Andrea. Meanwhile, the Iran-Contra problem is closely tied to another big headache for the president. That's the open warfare between two of his closest advisors, First Lady Nancy Reagan and White House Chief of Staff Donald Regan. Jamie Gangel reports.
White House aides concede they're spending most of their time on damage control. Every day there are new revelations about the Iran arms scandal. In one day alone, there were 5 different embarrassing stories. And to make matters worse, there is also a public feud going on between the First Lady and Chief of Staff Donald Regan, making the most frequently asked question at the White House these days, when will Donald Regan resign? Regan's aides insist their boss is in his job for the long haul. But friends of the Reagans insist the question is not if he's leaving, but how soon they can find a replacement. The feud is making front-page headlines, said one White House aide. This rivals the Hatfields and the McCoys. The First Lady apparently is intent on getting rid of Regan because she blames him for pushing the president to work too hard after his prostate surgery and for lack of leadership in dealing with the Iran scandal. The conflict is being played out in leaks to the press. First, the report that the First Lady was no longer speaking to Regan. Then, reports that Regan had hung up on her twice. And today, the revelation that the Chief of Staff directly blames the First Lady for pushing through the nomination of John Kohler as the new White House Communications Director. The White House was surprised when an NBC News report revealed that as a 10-year-old, Kohler was briefly a member of a Nazi youth group. Although Kohler has been defended by many prominent Jewish organizations as a victim of the circumstances of his youth, it was another embarrassing piece of news the White House didn't need.
Well, it came as a great surprise to me that the White House didn't know it. I firmly felt that they had that security file. And it seems to me that if the FBI tells the White House the guy is clean, he's clean.
An aide to Mrs. Reagan says she was upset about the story, adding it's not fair for her to take the blame for everybody. And a friend of the First Lady's added, they make it sound like she's running the White House. Well, what's Donald Regan doing? Jamie Gangel, NBC News, the White House.
Coming up later on our news, 4,000 Syrian soldiers are poised to enter Beirut, where bloody civil war battles continue. Rick Davis will have that report. A fearful calm today in Tampa, Florida, after 2 nights of race rioting. David Hazinski has that story. And after brain surgery, baseball manager Dick Howser is back with a special kind of courage. Fred Biggs will have that report.
Hey, how are you?
The American dream is one of hope and possibilities. We're GMAC, people who help make dreams come true. First, we made automobile financing easy. Now, home mortgages, financing for a boat, even MIC insurance to keep your dreams safe. We're the financial services people from General Motors. GMAC, official sponsor of America's dreams.
This is a Lear Jet 35, masterfully engineered, magnificently appointed. One might think it rather expensive. One would be right. This is Master Blend coffee, masterfully blended, delightfully aromatic. One would think it too rather expensive. Wrong. Which is why when I go shopping, I usually select Master Blend over Lear Jets. Not only costs less, it takes up less room in the kitchen.
Master Blend. It only tastes expensive.
Throughout the 20th century, one industry has been responsible for helping develop countless plant safety procedures. Procedures that make the American factory a safe, secure, relaxed place to work. Who is that industry? You're going to be surprised. Your insurance company. We do a lot more than sell insurance.
Thousands of Syrian troops have massed in the mountains overlooking Beirut, ready to move in to enforce the latest shaky ceasefire in the Lebanese capital. There was sporadic fighting in West Beirut again today after a week of bloody battle between rival militia forces. Rick Davis has more from Damascus.
By Beirut standards, the ceasefire is holding. The 500 Syrian soldiers who have been in Beirut for months were on the streets. They have not been able to stop the killing in the past. Perhaps 4,000 more will have better luck. Syria forced a meeting between Lebanon's battling warlords in Damascus last night. Walid Jumblat of the victorious Druze militia and Abe Berry of the battered Shiite Amal. The distance between them a symbol of their differences. Today, Lebanon's Muslim prime minister made it clear he wants the Syrians to stop the street wars.
We are sure that all the citizens in Beirut are going to be pleased by all this deciding situation after the response of Syria.
This is just a glance at the violence which has killed at least 200 people over the last week. It was day and night war, and some sniper fire continues. The sidewalks are blackened with shell casings. For children, yesterday's tools of death are the toys of today. The people of Beirut used the few hours of relative quiet to stock up. For days, they have been unable to get out of their homes. Others are obviously saying enough of Beirut. They are fleeing south. They have little faith the Syrians or anyone else will be able to stop the fighting for long.
Lebanon's President Amin Gemayel says the Syrian move into Beirut is illegal. Other Christian leaders agree with him. But the Syrians are showing they're not concerned with the subtleties of law. They believe in force, and their troops are going to move in and use it. Rick Davis, NBC News, Damascus.
Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega attacked President Reagan for his backing of the Contra rebels again today. He said his nation has paid a high price for its civil war, but declared there is no way the U.S.-backed Contra rebels can win. Robin Lloyd reports from Nicaragua.
From the beginning of his address, Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega focused on the Contra War. We must mobilize militarily, he said, to defeat the mercenaries. This was the anniversary of the death of Nicaragua's revolutionary hero, Augusto Sandino, and Ortega used the occasion to call the Contra War a failure. He told the crowd that in the past year, more than 4,000 Contras had been killed. Still, he admitted that the war and the U.S. embargo against Nicaragua had cost the economy more than $2 billion. Nicaraguan military officials now acknowledge that there are some 6,000 armed rebels inside the country. But despite continuing attacks on farm cooperatives by the Contras, the Nicaraguan government believes it can contain the rebel forces in remote areas deep in the mountains. Pro-government demonstrators routinely show their confidence in the military by making fun of the Contra leaders and their ties to the United States. Sandinistas now have 60,000 regular troops, and in recent military maneuvers, they've openly displayed Soviet tanks and helicopters, even allowing American military officials to look on. Ortega today appeared to be openly challenging President Reagan. He said the $100 million in U.S. aid to the Contras won't make any difference. Reagan, he said, can't buy a victory in Nicaragua. The Sandinistas believe that for now, the Contras are not a serious military threat. Still, the fact that Ortega stressed the Contra War so heavily today and its impact on the economy is a clear indication that the government here is concerned that the fighting may soon begin to escalate. Robin Lloyd, NBC News, Nikki Nomo, Nicaragua.
Brazil's President Jose Sarney says his nation is indefinitely suspending interest payments on its $108 billion foreign debt. That interest currently totals $600 to $700 million a month. Officials in Brasilia say they will resume paying interest only after their nation wins better terms from international bankers.
Wait till you see the changes we're making at Howard Johnson.
This is Howard Johnson? This is Howard Johnson?
Är det verkligen Howard Johnson?
This is Howard Johnson?
If you haven't stayed with us recently, you may be in for a surprise.
This is Howard Johnson.
We're changing our rooms, our furnishings, and there's a new attention to service.
This is Howard Johnson.
This is Howard Johnson.
This is Howard Johnson.
That'll do it. Who wants grapefruit juice?
I'll pass.
It's good for you. It's great for dieting.
I know, but...
Lots of vitamin C?
Yeah, but...
With the taste? Here, try this. Ocean Spray Pink Grapefruit Juice Cocktail. It's tangy, smoother, sweeter.
This is grapefruit juice?
Uh-huh.
It's not bitter.
It's Ocean Spray Pink Grapefruit Juice Cocktail. And it's not just good for you, it's good. Ocean Spray good.
You're on your way.
Kids and science can really get together in the right kind of place. So Dow has developed and funded the Touch Tech Laboratory here at Impression 5 in Lansing, Michigan.
In this particular experiment, we're going to make a solid out of two liquids.
It's a hands-on museum that puts the wonders of science at a child's fingertips.
Here you go, PJ.
Who knows what that could lead to?
Dow lets you do great things.
Police in Tampa are hoping for a quiet night tonight after 2 nights of racial violence. About 200 people went on a rampage Thursday, and there was sporadic violence last night. David Hazinski reports from Tampa.
Merchants were boarding up damaged store windows this morning. About 80 riot police withdrew from a black neighborhood, and the city remained quiet today. Officers had had their hands full for a second night, trying to quiet dozens of youths who fought a hit-and-run battle with them, smashing windows and rocking both police cars and police officers. 2 people suffered minor injuries.
There was about 30 kids coming down 7th, and they had bottles and rocks, and they were pounding on the windows.
6 adults and 8 juveniles were arrested last night, charged with either inciting to riot or vandalism. Officials say there would probably have been more trouble and more arrests if black leaders hadn't gone out with officers and tried to quiet the crowd.
I think everything is mellowing out, and everything is just about back to normal.
City officials also urged calm during the day Friday. The mayor visited schools in the troubled neighborhood, urging students to stay off the streets.
You have a responsibility to be at home.
The pleas for calm had followed a night of firebombing and rock throwing Thursday by about 200 youths. The rioting began after a 23-year-old black man who had allegedly threatened 4 people with a knife died while being subdued by a white police officer using a controversial chokehold. Police hope the angry violence has now played itself out. They say they'll avoid a show of force and a curfew and hope youths stay off the streets tonight. David Hazinski, NBC News.
When you need it most, you can get extra strength relief from acid indigestion with extra strength Riopan Plus. In lab tests, it neutralizes twice the acid as regular Maalox or Mylanta. It's that strong. You can also get extra strength relief from heartburn with extra strength Riopan Plus. Ounce for ounce, it neutralizes twice the acid as regular Maalox or Mylanta. It's that strong. Extra strength Riopan Plus. Regular strength, too.
When minor arthritis pain gets a hold of you, you need the warming power of Bengay. Bengay's penetrating warmth starts relieving pain fast, right where it hurts most. So break the grip of pain with Bengay.
You can't sleep. There's pain. Now, break the barriers of sleeplessness and pain with Unisom Dual Relief, a new formula sleep aid plus aspirin-free pain relief. Tonight, take new Unisom Dual Relief.
Watch this. I talk, and my words appear on the screen.
This is an experimental IBM computer system. It recognizes thousands of words, even words that sound the same. Please write to Mrs. Wright right now. Another innovation from IBM and the most advanced voice recognition system of its kind, period.
The FBI is seeking a new high-tech weapon for its war on crime. As Carl Stern reports, Soviet spies would be its #1 target.
The FBI is planning for a supercomputer more expensive than all its current computers put together that could scan at high speed the communications of millions of Americans to ferret out crime, especially espionage. Critics of the FBI regard it as a civil liberties nightmare.
You're talking about possibly a millionfold increase in their ability to spy on people and listen into their phone conversations.
A clue to the future is buried in the president's budget proposal. A single sentence requesting $11 million for a highly sophisticated system to assist in language translation and recording in the FBI's New York field office. New York is considered the center of Soviet bloc activity. The $11 million would buy a small computer to immediately spot calls in or calls out involving certain phone numbers. The FBI cites the case of spy Ronald Pelton, who telephoned the Soviet embassy to arrange a meeting place, but whose call was recognized too late to catch him. But what the FBI wants most is a computer that can flag keywords that are spoken, code names for secrets and things that are classified. That is phase 2 of the FBI's proposal, which it has not yet asked for.
The phase 2 system simply takes wiretapping from a sort of retail dirty business into a high-scale, high-tech, automated wholesale business.
By having this computerized, you're able to bring in an awful lot more phone calls, more targets, more people who are making phone calls.
One congressman says the FBI won't get the money.
When Congress and the American people understand the frightening implications of such a system, we won't buy it.
But so far, not a peep has been heard about the initial request in the president's budget. Some senators and congressmen we called said they couldn't even tell what the words referred to. Carl Stern, NBC News, Washington.
There has been no official announcement, but it appears the Soviets are about to end their 18-month unilateral ban on nuclear weapons tests. U.S. scientists at monitoring sites near the Soviet Central Asia test site say they've been ordered to turn off their monitoring equipment for at least 3 days. That, they say, is an indication the Soviets are getting ready for a test explosion.
You know something? The way it runs and feels and everything? This Pontiac 6000 of mine is probably one of the finest road sedans of all time.
Oh, come on.
Probably.
Okay.
I did say probably. Okay.
She is the mystery.
I don't care where you come from. Alaska will get you.
Alaska is the story that my father told of swift rivers running with salmon and gold. Alaska is so many things I have never known. Alaska is the warming sun calling me home. Alaska.
Where would the Democrats take us in '88? Congressman Richard Gephardt, the first Democrat to formally announce his presidential bid, he'll throw his hat in the ring Monday, meets the press Sunday.
Sunday, the superstars of the National Football League battle it out. The New York Giants, Jim Burt and Harry Carson, go eye to eye with the Broncos, Rulon Jones and Carl Mecklenburg. The best of the NFC take on the best of the AFC. The Dodge Super Teams on NBC Sports World Sunday.
Good morning.
Day's looking new and bright.
It's Monday again.
And you're gonna start it right.
Traffic's tied up.
Cause there's Folgers for you that's decaffeinated too. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Mornings brighten with mountain-grown Folgers decaffeinated. Mountain-grown coffee beans have a more enticing aroma.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Decaffeinated.
We asked 1,000 doctors if stranded in the wilderness, which would they want? Tylenol, extra-strength Tylenol, Advil, or Bayer? More doctors chose Bayer, nearly 2-to-1 over extra-strength Tylenol. Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders.
When Kansas City baseball manager Dick Howser had a malignant brain tumor removed last July, his doctor called it the most deadly kind of tumor and the most difficult to remove. But Howser has shown the kind of off-the-field courage that has surprised even those who watched him manage his team to victory in the 1985 World Series. Fred Briggs reports now from Fort Myers, Florida.
Spring began today for Kansas City's Boys of Summer. The Royals formally began spring training with many of their big names on hand, including one who wasn't expected, manager Dick Howser, greeting veterans and rookies.
Hey, John. Nice to see you. How you doing?
A few months ago, there weren't many people who would have bet on Dick Howser being back here today, or being back anywhere as a working manager. He has been one of the most successful managers of the past decade. In 1985, he led the Royals to victory in the World Series, and last July managed an American League team to one of their rare wins in the All-Star game. That very night, he was taken to a hospital. A tumor was found in his brain. It was malignant. Surgery could only remove part of it. There was a second operation in December, followed by radiation treatment and chemotherapy.
It's not fun. It's still day-to-day with me.
So this day, his return surprised almost everyone, except Howser.
But I planned on this the day after the first surgery. In July, I'm right where I want to be in my uniform.
How does he look to you?
Different. He looks a little bit different, but he looks good.
Howser's lost 15 pounds, but says he feels well, although he does take brief afternoon naps. His team has missed him, especially in the last half of the 1986 season.
I think it's evident that when he left last year, it was tough on the team. We just could never really get it going.
He gave us the old speech this morning to go get him.
The Royals think Howser has set an example.
He showed us what it's all like to be in a battle. He's in the biggest battle of his life right now, and if we can battle half of what he's battling right now, we should win a division easily and the World Series.
Howser's traveling may be limited in the preseason games, but he says he'll be on the road with the Royals come April, on the road to a great year.
I'm here, and I feel good, and we're ready to go.
Fred Briggs, NBC News, Fort Myers, Florida.
And that's our news. Tomorrow on Meet the Press, possible Democratic presidential candidate, Congressman Richard Gephardt. And Chris Wallace will be here tomorrow night. I'm Connie Chung in New York. I'll see you again next Saturday night. Thank you for joining us. And for all of us at NBC News, good night.
Returns in an all-new all-star Perry Mason.
What else about last night comes to mind?
Blackmail and murder take a romantic twist when the suspect is married to Perry's old love.
I don't like this arrangement. I can easily resign.
Would you defend the husband of the woman you love?
Now think carefully before you answer.
The puzzling Perry Mason, Monday.
Tonight from News Center 13.
A Des Moines man is killed after a drug deal goes sour.
A minister turns himself in for a jail term after teaching his children illegally.
While another minister turns his presidential hopes toward Iowa.
Tom has the forecast, and Bruce with some bad news for basketball fans. All next.
Feet come in all shapes and sizes. So does foot pain. If you think foot pain is normal, our foot health care specialists or podiatrists want you to know it's not. The human foot is a mechanical marvel, but each of its many muscles and bones can contribute to foot pain. Our podiatrists will find the cause and the solution.
For an appointment at our new Tower Medical Clinic, call 271-1700. The University of Osteopathic Medicine and Health Sciences. We're here for your...